video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. Also, if you're really interested in the Krays, try our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where we have over 1,000 other videos and thousands of images. It's free, we're not monetized, and the link is in the YouTube description section. But keep it quiet, just between me and you, okay?
We'd taken over the Regal Billiard Hall, and we worked hard and we did well. It was about this time we started to go to a restaurant called the Vienna Rooms, just off the Edgware Road. A lot of well-known villains used to go there. It was a real meeting place for the top men. It was there we met two of the biggest men in the underworld, Jack Spot and Billy Hill. Both of them were powerful men. Jack Spot's real name was Jack Comer, but he was called Spot because he was always on the spot whenever a big crime was committed. He was from Aldgate. Billy Hill was from Camden Town, and he was the man, as far as me and Reg were concerned, tough, smart, and violent if necessary, but with a great brain. He was a true professional. Both he and Spot were smart dressers, and that also impressed me. Jack Spot hired us to do a bit of work for him, keeping an eye on his bookmakers' pitches at racecourses, just in case other gangs tried to move in on them, or in case anyone tried to pinch the money. And there wasn't a lot of trouble, as it turned out, though me and Reg always had plenty of weapons in our car, just in case. We enjoyed the days at the races, but we packed it in the end, because we had too many other things starting to go for us. The Regal was still doing well, but we had one or two other projects on the side. We could supply dockers' tickets, documents, which would enable a man to work as a docker, earning big money for just a few hours' work. We used to sell these tickets for varying amounts, depending on what we thought a man could afford to pay. We had a nice little thing going with a doctor in the East End who would sign documents which got young lads out of doing a national service which everyone hated. Lads and their parents used to pay us well for this service. And we were also involved in a little business bringing watches through London docks unofficially. At that stage, we were just two sharp fellas trying to get a bit of cash together so that we could buy one or two clubs and be legitimate. See, I think me and Reg would have been good businessmen. We both had brains in our heads and we were both hard workers. We probably wouldn't have been completely straight, but I don't think we were destined to be criminals. It wasn't really in the family or anything like that. It just sort of happened. We still liked to scrap, of course we did, and we sometimes used to get into little battles. We did it for fun, really. Reggie once worked out he'd broken 11 men's jaws in fights. See, me and Reg have always admired fighters in the ring and out. We like men who are game. When we were younger, we used to admire men like Billy Bligh and Tommy Smithson. Billy was from Clerkenwell, only a little fella, but he was as game as anything. He died in Wandsworth from a burst ulcer. Tommy Smithson was a well-known villain, a hard man who was shot to death by a Maltese gang. I would say he was game. I would say that the gamest men I've known would be Freddie Foreman, who did time with us, Jimmy Nash, and Frankie Fraser, who used to be with the Richardson gang. These are the sort of men we've always admired. And me and Reg didn't really have any bother with the police till we were 23. That was in 1957. Two friends of ours who ran a club had been having trouble with an Irish gang, and they weren't sure how to deal with it. The ringleader, I was told, was a fella called Terry Martin. So I thought I would go and sort him out. I was told that Terry Martin was drinking in a pub called the Britannia in Stepney. I went round there and I found Martin playing cards with some other men in the saloon bar. I asked him to come outside and we had a fight in the street. I hurt him quite badly because I thought he deserved it. Martin was taken to hospital and the matter should have ended there. But instead, when he was interviewed by the police in his hospital bed, Martin did the unforgivable thing. He broke the East End Code of Conduct and he grassed on me. The police obviously were out to get me because they gave Martin protection, and he later gave evidence against me at the Old Bailey. Mind you, he had to get out of London quickly as soon as the trial was over, and he never came back. He would have been in real trouble if he had. I got sent down for 3 years on a charge of GBH. I remember the judge, Sir Gerald Dodson, who was the Recorder of London, saying to me in court, "It would seem there has existed for some time a state of gang warfare, dangerous to all concerned." It wasn't really gang warfare at all. Or if it was nothing like what it was going to be when me and Reg really got going. But for the time being, I was out of the game and I was well pissed off about it. They sent me to Wandsworth, and I was doing all right there. I was coping okay, until that bastard warder told me that my Auntie Rose had died. I went into a state of real depression. I couldn't seem to get out of it. Wandsworth is a depressing place anyway, but I was really bad. So they sent me to Camp Hill, a soft prison on the Isle of Wight, because I suppose they thought I might be happier there, but I wasn't. It just felt a long way from London and Reg and the family. I got very withdrawn and disorientated, and I had a mental breakdown. I didn't know how ill I was, nor did they. They didn't know how to deal with it. They transferred me to the psychiatric wing at Winchester Prison, but I just went out of control. I just wanted to smash everything and everybody. I couldn't seem to get my mind sorted. They certified me insane in February 1958. It was a bad time, a frightening experience once they even put me in a straitjacket. No one could control me. I couldn't even control myself. They gave me drugs, but they seemed to make it worse. And they didn't know what to do with me at Winchester, so they moved me to Longgrove Mental Hospital. When I was there, I started to feel a bit better, but I was surrounded by other people who were really ill in their heads, really sick. I felt sorry for them, but I knew that I would not get better in a place like that. I knew I had to get out. Some people have said that I deliberately faked my mental illness just so I would get sent to Longgrove. It wasn't true, but I knew the doctors at Longgrove might not set me free for a long time. They could have kept me there as long as they liked. I could have stayed there a lot longer than the 3 years I was sent down for. Reg looked into it for me, and he found out that if I managed to get out and stay out for more than 14 days, then the doctors would have to re-examine me to see if I was fit enough to be released at the proper time. That was the law, so we worked out a good scam to get me out. Reg and 3 other friends came to visit me. They were brought into the locked ward, which I shared with several other patients. Reg was wearing a similar navy blue suit to the one I was wearing, and a similar grey check shirt, blue tie and black shoes. At the end of visiting time, it was me who walked out of the hospital with our 3 friends, and Reggie, who was sat in the ward reading a newspaper. Of course, they didn't realise that until I was well clear and Reggie demanded to be let out, there was a bit of argy-bargy with the police, who had no choice but to let him go with a few threats about prosecuting him. Like I said, I only needed to be out for 14 days, but I liked it better outside, so I stayed out for 145 days. I lived most of the time in Suffolk, in a caravan on a farm owned by a friend of ours, but sometimes I came back to London. A few times I even slept in my own bed in Valence Road. The police eventually found me there, took me back to Long Grove, where the doctors re-examined me and said I was a lot better. I stayed there for a bit more observation. Then they moved me back to Wandsworth and eventually released me in the spring of 1959. They said I should have some more treatment as an outpatient at a mental hospital in London. But I only went a few times because I didn't think it was doing me any good. And I was feeling a lot better. I still had bad times, but not so many. While I'd been away, Reg had been busy. He'd found some premises in the Bow Road, which he turned into our club, the Double R. It was a drinking and gambling club, and it was very successful. On the night it opened, he sent me a telegram at Wandsworth. With some help from our brother Charlie, he'd also bought a couple of spiels, illegal drinking clubs, small, not very attractive places, but they made good money from people who wanted to drink out of hours. Over the years, we owned about 34 different clubs and spiels, but I think I liked the Double R best of all. I liked it partly because it was our first club and partly because downstairs it had a fully equipped gym where we used to meet a lot of our friends from the boxing world. Henry Cooper, one of the greatest heavyweights this country has ever produced, did the opening ceremony for us. We knew all the big names of boxing, including Billy Walker, another famous heavyweight fighter. Me and Reg also really liked the Kentucky Club in the Mile End Road in Stepney, which we opened in 1963. It was a really plush place with lots of red velvet and big mirrors. In the swinging 60s, the Kentucky was one of the in places to be. By the early 60s, me and Reg had collected a gang. We didn't set out to do it, it just happened. The fellas used to hang around with us and they just sort of stayed. We became known as the Firm. I never really liked us being called that. I always thought it was a name that could backfire on us one day. Why? Well, the Firm implies that something is well organised. I mean, the police never like to think criminals are well organised. It's better to try and keep a low profile. During our trial at the Old Bailey in 1969, the prosecution lawyers kept using the word firm, and one of them asked me, "Is it right that you and your gang are known as the Firm?" I took out a small dictionary I always kept in my pocket, found there was the right page, and said to him, the word firm means commercial enterprise. I said, well, I'm out of work and I haven't got a factory or any other commercial enterprise, so it looks like you're wrong. But we'd put together a strong gang of men. Me and Reg were the leaders, and under us we had men like Ian Barry, Pat Connolly, Tommy the Bear Brown, Big Albert Donahue, Sammy Liederman, Cornelius Whitehead, Ronnie Bender, Tony and Chrissy Lambriano, Scotch Jack Dixon, Ronnie Hart, and many more. Some did a lot of work for us, some did little. Some were important, some weren't. nearly all of them, with the exception of Ian Barry, let us down in the end, grassed on us and told lies about us, just to save their own skins. Apart from the clubs, we had plenty of other things going. One of the best earners was a little scam called the long firm fraud. How it worked was so simple. We'd rent a warehouse in a phony name and set up a phony company in the names of other people. We'd begin to order stuff from major suppliers, televisions, washing machines, furniture, that sort of thing. We would only order small amounts and make sure they were paid promptly. This would go on for some months until we got the confidence of the suppliers. Then we'd order enough stuff to fill the warehouse. And then wallop, we'd sell off the lot quickly and fairly cheaply and disappear. It never failed. Instant cash and no trouble. Mind you, if there ever was any trouble, we were well equipped to deal with it. We had gradually got together a real arsenal of weapons, which we kept in various safe places. The thing that made us different from most gangs in London in those days was that we weren't afraid to use them. I've shot several people over the years. The first person I shot was an ex-boxer called Shorty, who was trying to put the squeeze for protection money on a friend of ours who owned a garage. Shorty didn't know this fellow was a friend of ours, of course. When Shorty went to the garage to collect his money, he found me there waiting for him. He started to get lippy, made a couple of threats, so I shot him in the leg with an automatic Luger. The police arrested me and put me on an identification parade, but Shorty wasn't stupid and he didn't pick me out. Another time, a fella called George Dixon upset me in a club and I tried to kill him. I took out my Luger, aimed it at his head and pulled the trigger. And Dixon was lucky because the gun jammed. He ran out of the club fucking quickly. It must have been 1,000,000 against the gun jamming. Later, I made friends with Dixon and gave him the bullet. I thought it would be a good reminder to him to be careful about who he upset. Another time, I was having a drink at the Central Club in Clerkenwell with an Italian fella by the name of Battles. This club was a meeting place for all the Italians in London at the time. While I was there, I got into an argument with a fella by the name of Billy Alco. I took my gun out of my pocket and took a shot at Alco. Luckily, I missed him, and I'm pleased now I did, because he has become a good friend over the years and has come to see me at Broadmoor. People used to ask me why I was so unpredictable, so volatile. I didn't know then, but I think now it was my mental illness, my paranoia. I just couldn't stop myself from hurting people, especially if I thought they were slighting me or plotting against me. Also, I liked the feeling of guns. Usually, though, I was happier with my fists or a knife. I had a lot of scraps with people and I cut quite a few people with my knife, but we didn't set out to make people frightened of us. We liked to think we got things out of people because they respected us, not because they feared us. Another thing they always say about the Krays is that we ran all the big protection rackets in London. That's not true. We were never involved in protection as such. People are always saying we used to send our men round to clubs and restaurants and shops and threaten to smash them up unless they gave us money. But we never did that. We didn't have to do that because people used to come to us and ask us to look after their places to keep other gangs away, or small-time villains acting on their own. But we were never involved in protection. We never used to go to them and say to them, if you don't give us this money, we'll smash your place up. I deny that strongly. We had a reputation in the East End and the West End for looking after places. There were some who said we collected protection money, but that is wrong. It's all lies. If people want to call it protection, they can, but it wasn't protection as we saw it. That concludes my story so far for this edition. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly, moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.